21 lessons on leasing. No, no. Okay, so the formulas, just to reiterate, pay close attention because I'm going to use these today, but not necessarily all the time. So I'm going to pick from, categories. So I need you to know that when it comes to kilometers, right, when it comes to mileage, these kind of go together. Okay, so if the question all it talks about is mileage, okay, if all the question wants is something about mileage, like how much you pay when you go over the limit, then you need to probably refer to these formulas on 46. But I don't know if I mentioned this, but a lot of us we miss the fact that it says or here. It could be this scenario where you have an allowance. I'm going to write this down because, write this down. Allowance per year, you're going to use this method right here. But sometimes there's kilometers you drove. There's a fixed allowance, fixed number. So I'm being a bit more specific because when I make them, to me, this makes sense. To you, you might have to add to be more specific. So if it says 20,000 kilometers per year, then you're like, oh, it's a 3-year lease. 20,000 times 3, that's 60,000 that you're allowed to drive, correct? 46. Other times, listen carefully, other times it'll just say flat out, you've got 80,000 kilometers. That's it, for the whole lease. It doesn't matter how many years, it'll just flat out say no more than this. Why is there a limit on kilometers, you might think, when it comes to leasing? Because maybe you don't know, right? But that's the #1 reason why your car loses value. So let's say you're a salesman and you drive to Calgary twice a week. You're going to rack up hundreds of thousands of kilometers in 2 years or 3 years, right? You're going to put on a lot of kilometers. You bring it back with 300,000 kilometers, and they're like, what? It's worth nothing now, right? To them, it's worth very little. They can't sell it for a whole lot. So that's why they have a limit. So if you go over, you pay extra for every single kilometer you go over, okay? That's the thing with leasing. It's always going to be the case, right? They always charge you for extra. So even if you rent a car, you have a limit. Did you know that? It's a daily limit. You've got, 200 kilometers per day. All right, so that. Then total payments, you go payments times the months times 1.12. It doesn't matter in which order you do this in. Total lease cost, we've got our down payment. We've got this bag here, which represents the total number of payments, or the total amount in payments, and perhaps a mileage cost. You got to be attentive to this because sometimes the question does not talk about mileage. In that case, you just know you're going to ignore this piece. Sometimes there are leases that do not have a down payment. You have to put 0 down. You don't put anything in here then, right? So just keep in mind that that's the case. Another thing, that the buyout, when you hear the term buyout, it's exclusive to leasing. It means to take your residual value, it's what's left over of the car, and you tax it by multiplying it by 1.12. On the side here, this is what I'm going to highlight. Where is this residual value coming from? It may be that you have to do a little bit of math on the side and then bring this in here to figure out the buyout. Okay, so I'm highlighting both of these so you can see that that's where I got it from. Make sure that your study sheet has a leasing section. Leasing, big leasing. This is all leasing in this bag because let's say 3 months go by and you're doing a payment question that has loans and you're going to go through your formula. It's like, oh, look at here, total payments. This is payments. Let's just throw it in there. This is leasing. We're not talking about a loan here. We're talking about leasing. Okay. So otherwise you are going to mix it up and it's going to be completely wrong, okay? Let's keep going. We're going to talk about some advantages and disadvantages of leasing, okay? I would like you to have at least 2 of each on your study sheet. And when I say that, I'm not just saying it to keep you busy, okay, or to like make you fill in your study sheet. I'm telling you this because it could be on the exam. Okay, advantages. The biggest advantage of leasing is that there's a lower monthly payment compared to financing. So this is specific to, right, leasing versus getting a loan compared to financing. Make sure you write this down. Do you know why this would be? Why is leasing cheaper per month than financing? Because when you lease, you're only paying for some of the value, right? Depreciation, all that. When you finance, you're financing the entire car. Okay, so you kind of, if you need help on this explaining that, that's why. Say if you keep on leasing, you will overall have a safer vehicle, since you always drive a new car. Even though it's simple to you right now, it's like, I remember that. Make sure you write this down. Lower maintenance. Costs. And explaining with these, since your car is under warranty. Since your car is under warranty. This is for business owners. Potential tax write-off. For businesses. Okay. So if you're a business owner, you have a large fleet of vehicles, you might not buy them. You will just lease cars and just keep signing a lease, and you can write off those payments as an expense, right? You can return the vehicle at the end of the lease. You cannot just take it back anytime you want. It's like your cell phone. Once you sign for that, right, your contract, 2-year contract, if you don't want to be with that company anymore, you need to pay them. You need to buy them out, right? You need to buy your phone out. Same scenario with leasing. You'd have to probably pay a penalty for bringing it back earlier, for breaking your lease contract. Next, disadvantages, sorry. The biggest disadvantage is there's mileage restrictions. There's a limit on the kilometers you can drive. Payments never stop. And this is implying that if you consistently, leasing were to be your thing, payments would just never stop. You just keep on leasing and leasing and leasing. So if you're into that, payments would never stop. This is a big one for some of us. You cannot make permanent modifications. You can't upgrade the sound system, right? You can't, like, any wiring or anything like that, muffler. You can't lower it, like some of us like to lower the car, right? I don't know why you would do that in Winnipeg, to be honest. Pothole season, there goes your car, right? Anyways, and this one is the last one I'm going to give you. You cannot use the car as collateral or asset. So when the banks give you loans, they usually ask for, what do you have? What do you own? And you'll tell them, well, I have a car. Okay, that's good to know, right? And you'll tell them how much approximately. They actually just ask you approximately, oh, it's 10 grand, right? So they know it's like, oh yeah, you've got 10 grand, so we'll borrow you money because we know you own something. You cannot say that if you lease. You cannot say I have a car. You literally cannot tell them I have a car because you can't put it as collateral towards the loan. So you can't do that. So let's say you want a loan to go visit, or like I want 3 grand to go visit or go to Mexico or whatever. You cannot use your car as collateral for that loan. Okay, that's it. Let's do some math here. Page 49. I'll do 2, and then you'll do a couple before I hand this off, okay? So you got to pay attention. You got to write this down. A minivan sells for $28,500. That's the MSRP. This is the price when it's brand new. Okay, when it's brand new, that's what it's worth. You lease it for $479 per month plus tax. That's telling you, pay attention, guys. You're gonna have to add taxes to your payment. Okay? Over 24 months. A down payment is required. So in this case, you need to make a down payment. And I'm going to use a different color for this part here. The guaranteed residual value of the vehicle is 62% of the MSRP. Okay? So the residual value is that much of the MSRP. This is not the same as depreciation when we buy a brand new vehicle. It works different here. Okay? A, calculate the total payments, right? The total payment amount after tax. Are you writing this down? I should write this down. Here we go. Total payments. What's the formula? The formula calls for the payment times, does it say months? I think the formula says months times 1.12. So we have to add tax and we have to multiply it by the number of months this is going for. So this is 479 times 24 times 1.12. And here it is. That's all you would have to do in this case. I'm giving you a heads up, this one will have no mileage. This question doesn't have any mileage associated with it. So here you just have to write down 12,875.52. Get into the habit of clearly telling me what your final answer is, because if you have a bunch of numbers, we need to know which one is actually answering the question. Total payments, correct? Now, calculate the total cost of the lease after tax. So write this down. Total lease, if in theory, it would be your down payment plus payment times 1.12 times months plus any mileage. That's what the formula is. That's exactly what it is. But we don't have any mileage, correct? It doesn't talk about anything like that, so that's just gone. So you're just left with your down payment, which is $1,500, plus this we already know, but I'm going to pretend like we never answered the question above. I know the order is different. Like if you look at these numbers compared to the numbers up here, they're in different order, but when you're multiplying things like that, it doesn't change anything. So this whole thing is 12,875.52. If we add that up, we get 14,375.52. So if somebody asks you how much was your lease, this is what you would tell them. This is how much I ended up paying for that lease agreement over 2 years. And you don't own the car, by the way. You have to bring it back. So it is quite lucrative for dealers to lease cars. It is. Okay? They're in the business of making money. C, calculate the total residual value of the minivan after tax. Here's where I'm going to ask you to change the wording. Calculate the, cross that out, the buyout, calculate the buyout value of the minivan after tax. I want you to do that. Step number one, we need to figure out the residual value. And that is the price, right? New price multiplied by a percentage divided by 100. Hold it. Do I always have to use this formula, Mr. Dirksen, to find out the residual value? You're listening, right? The answer is no. Sometimes the question gives you the dollar value of what you have to pay at the time of the purchase. But in this case, they gave us the MSRP and they gave us a percentage that it's going to be worth at the end. Let's go and look it up. It is, in orange right there, 62% of the MSRP. They're telling us that. So the residual value itself is 28,500 times 62 over 100. And let's figure out what that is. Times 62 divided by 100, or 62 divided by 100, and then multiply by 28,500. There it is. So by the time you're ready to purchase this car, this is how much you're going to have to pay before tax. So buyout is the residual value times 1.12. So we take this number and plug it in here. There it is. 19,790 and 40 cents. That is what the question really wanted at the end of the day. But I'm gonna just show you, right? This number came in here, right? Traveled. And last but not least, the total cost of leasing and buying. So watch this, watch up here. This is leasing, this is buying. So really it's just asking us to add these numbers up. So never leave this blank. If it asks that, you just go ahead and add up what you've already done and you're good to go. So total lease including purchase. So it's 14,375.52 plus 19,790.40. Uh-oh. What's happening there? All right, here we go. You ready, right? Okay, Michelle is returning a Toyota Corolla. She leased for 3 years. We know how long, okay? The original purchase price was $24,000 before taxes. So the original price is $24,000. That's when it's brand new. Michelle paid $310 plus taxes per month. So there is a hint towards the payment. And 99.9% of the time, this is how it will be stated. Like, you need to add taxes yet to that payment, all right? There's also a down payment of $4,000. So we're gathering information. And watch this. I'm going to use a different color. The guaranteed residual value stated on the contract is $15,600 before tax. So no percentage here. It just flat out gives you the dollar amount. That's the residual value. So we're just going to have to add taxes to this if we want the buyout. Okay? Next, I'm going to use pink here for this one. Very filled with information. Usually the province doesn't do this many things at the same time, but I'm guiding you through it, so I think it's okay. There's a $12,000 per year, highlight all of that, $12,000 per year allowance with a 15-cent per kilometer charge if you go over the limit. We now know there's going to be something with mileage here. We're going to be charged extra most likely. The vehicle is returned with an odometer reading, that's the dashboard that shows you the kilometers, of 41,200. Okay, so now let's start answering questions. Calculate the total mileage charge Michelle will have to pay after tax. So we're going to first figure out the kilometers over limit. Which one are we going to use? Keep your finger on 50. I'm going to go to 46, sorry. Which one am I going to use between this or this? Is it a fixed amount or is it a per year amount of the allowance? It's $12,000 per year that I'm allowed to drive, correct? So I'm going to use this version right here. So I'm going to go kilometers driven minus allowance per year times the number of years. That's the one I'm going to be using. So here we go. I drove 41,200, right? That's the odometer reading tells you that's how many you drove. Minus, you put this in brackets, you are allowed 12,000 kilometers over 3 years. If you're a MART nerd, you know math, sorry, what did I say, MART? If you're a math nerd, you know that this is 12,000 times 3, right? If you're like me, you do it on your calculator. 41,200 minus 36,000. So this bracket here amounts to 36,000. This is what I'm allowed. This is what I actually drove. When we subtract them, you get 5,200 kilometers over. That's a lot. A lot of kilometers that you went past your limit. So make sure you write this down. Now we're going to do the cost. The cost is also on page 46. We just take our kilometers. We multiply that by our rate, which we're told is 15 cents. And we multiply all of that by 1.12 because it's after tax. If anything is taxed in the leasing category, it is 12%. It's always 12%. So here we go. 5,200 times 0.15 times 1.12. 873.60. That's the answer. If you're into highlighting, I will just say this number came in here. Okay, like once I figured out how much I'm over, I bring it in there. That's when I know my cost of lease. So just for going over, you're going to pay an extra $873. Okay. Okay, keep going. Now we know our mileage cost. Question, if it said before taxes, would we have done this thing, this part? No, that's it. So please be aware, read carefully. I don't know what the province is going to do. So just read carefully. That's why I don't like formulas, but I do think that most students appreciate formulas, but I just want you to know what is each part doing, right? Next, calculate the total cost of the lease after tax. I thought you'd never ask, right? Total lease. It's asking, I'm going to write this down. Down payment plus payment times 1.12 times months plus mileage. Let's move the mouse already so nothing falls asleep on me here. What's the down payment? Go scan. 4,000 up here. Okay, so we put that down. Does it get a 1.12 next to it? No. Down payment, no tax. So that's very important. Plus, the payment is 310. So we're going to go 310 times 1.12 because it needs to be taxed. Times how many months are there in 3 years? I'm going to go way up here and just say that 3 years is the same thing as 36 months. Right, so the 36 comes in here. Plus mileage, which we already calculated. Most of the time it's going to be a separate number you already determined beforehand. So the 873.60 tags along just like that. It's already taxed, all right? We already taxed it, you know it. So now we just need to crunch some numbers and come up with our total. Do this bracket here, 310. I know some of you can't wait to do this yourselves. You will get the chance, don't worry. So adding all these up, you get a nice train. If you have Mr. Isfeld, he does not like choo-choo trains, right? He probably told you that. But that's okay. I don't mind trains as long as it's like at the end like this. It doesn't actually, it's actually a true statement. This is your total cost of the lease agreement, including everything that could possibly make it in there. You know those infomercials, right? But wait, there's more. Determine the cost to purchase the vehicle at the end of the lease after tax. Okay? Can you write this down? i.e. buyout. Okay, that's what they're asking. Like, what's the price to purchase it after tax? They want the buyout. So buyout is going to be the price. Is there a percentage? Nope, but we know it's fixed. Watch this. 15,600 times 1.12, that's it. 15,600 times 1.12. Right? Does this make sense that we're not doing anything before to get this number, right? We just grabbed it from the top there. And there we go. 17,472. That's it. This would probably be a 1-mark question. Let the marks associated with a question guide you as to how much work is needed. Same like with everything I do, it's usually gonna tell you 1 mark, easy, right? 1 step perhaps, more than 1 mark, couple steps. Calculate the total cost of the lease, including the purchase at maturity. I threw that in there. It just means at the end of the lease. So total lease plus purchase, that's basically what they're asking. We're just going to add up these two numbers that we've already determined before. And that's going to be a whopping 34,844.80. And I sometimes get too ambitious, so the last one here we're just going to omit. I was going to make you go back to loans and figure out the monthly payment and blah blah blah, but we don't have time for that. We want to focus on leasing right now. Maybe if time allows, I'll get to it. 1 second, I'll just make sure we are all on the same page here. We're all on 50, right? I'm going to ask you to take a moment here. And first thing we're going to do is we're going to go to page 52. So we're skipping 51 for now. There's a reason for this. Okay? The risk is so low right now. If you get it wrong, nothing is going to happen, right? You're not going to lose any marks. I want you to try example 5. Okay? And some of you are going to be done sooner than others. That's okay. Then you go back to example 3 and 4 and you try those two. Okay? You start with 5. Once you're done 5, you're going to go 3, 4. Okay? And I'm going to walk around and make sure A, you're doing your work. B, if you need help, you can ask me, okay? Taking your freedom away. Oh, this is just a fun story. You know what my two. Okay. But I'm trying to be cool, so I also I've played Fortnite, and I actually got a victory royale. You know how I got it? I was hiding in the bushes. That's just funny. Hey. Okay, let's do this, and then we can joke. You already read this, so I'm kind of just gonna say 35,000 is the MSRP of the car before taxes. 48 months. What are you thinking in years? 4. You divide it by 12, right? 375 plus tax is the payment. There's a down payment. I'm going to use a different color for kind of categorizing it. They talk about residual value. That is implying that you're going to have to pay 65% of what the original is. What's the original? 100%. By the time you're done, you're only going to owe 65%, right? Then there's the kilometers, 20,000 per year, and you're paying 11 cents per kilometers thereafter. Okay, so you return it with this much on it. This is driven. Okay, so here we go, mileage. You have to figure out kilometers over. Put it away now, okay? Kilometers over. 92,350 minus 20,000 kilometers times 4 years. That is 92,350 minus 80,000. And that ends up being 12,350 kilometers over. Okay? Now the cost. You take that many kilometers, you multiply it by the rate, and you're going to tax it. If you do that correctly, you get, I saw a lot of these numbers floating out there. That's what you should be getting if you did this right. Okay? Please just read carefully. Don't be too overwhelmed. Just yes, I'm going to bombard you with information, but then when it's time to answer this, you're like, well, I know my formula. How much I drove minus the allowance. This is the allowance, okay? So overall, you get 80,000 kilometers over the 4 years. We know what it is per year, but we need to multiply by 4 to get the entire lease, okay? Next, determine the total cost of the lease. I'm just going to go TL, okay? We're going to need our down payment. Never tax a down payment, okay? Plus, my payment is $375 plus tax plus I know it's 48 months. If I'd given you years, 4 years, you would have known, you should know, okay, 4 times 12, 48 months. Plus, I'm going to take this number and just add it along with the previous number. Here we go. This part right here, 20,160. Okay, so these three values. That would be 26,681 and 52 cents. So that is everything that was entailed in that lease. That's what you paid over the 4 years. Just for the lease part, not buying it. That's separate. Next, calculate the residual value after tax. What do we know this as? Yeah. It's the buyout. Okay. I'm going to go residual value first. That would be 35,000 times 65 over 100. Every time you see a percent in this course, go ahead and divide it by 100 just to be safe. There's a one exception, but that's way down the road. Okay. You get 22,750. So the buyout. Do you have a question? Times 1.12, that would be 25,480. There we go. True or false? Are you always going to have to do this step right here, this one? Nope. Sometimes I'll just flat out give you this. I'll say, hey, the residual value is 22,750. What's the buyout? Okay, I'm just going to add taxes to it. Boom, you're done. But when it's a percentage, you need to figure that out. You need to figure out the residual value yourself. Calculate the total cost and outright purchase. This is the same thing as you purchasing it at the end, right? So it's basically asking for you to add up these two numbers here. This is the lease. This is the outright purchase. Okay. So total, I'm just going to say this, 26,681.52 plus 25,480. You get 52,161.52. Okay, one more. Example 3, I'm going to leave it at that. The rest of the class, you have options. Work, start the homework that I'm about to assign, update your study sheet if you want to do that, or you can just decide what you want to do at that time, but don't talk, right? As long as you're not talking loud with somebody else, because there might be people wanting to work, I'm okay with that, okay? Because I did talk a lot today, and I know it's painful, but sometimes I just need to do it, okay? Sean is turning in his leased car. The lease says you can drive 40,000 kilometers. This is like an odd question, by the way. It's actually very simple. He has to pay 10 cents per kilometers for any extra kilometers. He actually drove this many kilometers. Watch this. This is new. Ready? He also has to pay for paint and body repairs, $535, and $75 to fix a chip in the windshield. What? What would we know this as? What category? Do you remember when we bought cars? What would we put? Parts and labor. What does parts and labor get taxed as? Parts and labor is still 12%, right? So I threw it in there just in case, because sometimes you need to pay for damages when you return your vehicle. By the way, they often waive that if you buy it, because then they don't need to worry about it. You're okay with that scratch. You've driven around for, I don't know, months, years with it. So they'll be like, hey, if you buy it, don't worry about these repairs. And then you're like, ah, okay, I'll buy it. Right? Here we go. Ready? Kilometers over. That's what I would focus on. Kilometers over, we would go 44,237 minus 40,000. Would you agree with me there? Is that all we need to do, Mr. Dirksen? We don't have to go times 5 years, 3 years? Nope. Because it says, the lease says you can drive that much. Okay? So that's 4,237 kilometers. Now I can do my mileage. Is 42.37 times 10 cents times 1. Oh, I'm not going to go 1.12 just yet. Watch what I'm going to do here. If I do this, if I just do this, I get 423.70. I'm going to make sure you understand this is before tax. How do you know? I didn't multiply it by 1.12. Why would you do that? Because I'm going to do this. Total is going to be my mileage plus the paint and body repair, right? Plus 75. And what am I going to tax all of this? 12%. I'm just going to do it all in one shot. Okay? So I figure this out. And if I add everything up, I get, hold it, there we go. I get 1,033.70 cents. I'm going to multiply this by 1.12. 1157.74. But Mr. Dirksen, I don't want to deviate from the formula. So next time I'll go 427 times 10 cents times 1.12. I have the whole mileage with tax. And then I will add these two up and add taxes to this. And then just add it all up in one bag. Absolutely, I'm fine with that. Do whatever you must do. Just make sure you don't double tax. The danger would be, right, you tax this already and then you add it up and then you go times 1.12 again. Right? You might double tax if you do it, so you got to watch out for that. Okay. This is going to be page 54 to 56. There's a bunch of leasing questions. The key that I'm posting, though, has pages 51 to 56. Say what? Yeah, so the one I just did. So example 4, let's say you want to do example 4, you want to see if you did that right. It's going to be posted on the key, right? So I actually show you everything from 51 to 56 on that key. Thank you very much.